Me, a bro.
Yep.
He, a dude.
That's good stuff. All right. Let's try it. Okay. Welcome to the We Will Journey podcast. We're talking about faith and life as it happens, and not the glossy exterior we wish it was.
Oh.
What, man? What did I do wrong?
I think you said it's because all the things I was thinking about before. But we can edit that. You got that part good.
Oh.
You got it good. Okay.
Okay. All right.
Okay, just...
Now it's your turn.
Good?
Yeah.
Wait. We're going to get under the surface. I should have said all those things before. We should have waited down and dirty until after we read this part.
Okay.
Okay. Wait. We get under the surface and explore the down and dirty. Okay. Maybe we should. It doesn't have to be word for word, right?
No. I mean, I gave an interpretation.
Okay. All right. We get under the surface and explore the down and dirty of life as it pertains to our beliefs, our relationships, politics, and absolutely everything else.
Oh, there we go. That was good. All right.
When I'm dead, laying in my coffin, all my friends all gather round. They can say I'm just sleeping good alone, the sweet peace I have found.
3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon, Seth. How are things in my mother nation?
You're from Austria? What do you mean? What do you mean?
No, I'm not.
Mother?
I'm not. I just my motherland. I hail from Germany though, and you speak the mother tongue. So, but no, you don't. Because my family actually spoke Low German. They were Mennonites. Yeah.
But you hail from Europe, and
Germany,
and
yeah, we're German,
and spoke the German language. I don't know how Germany is doing today, your motherland.
Did you know that my dad had to learn English before he went to school?
Wow.
Because they only spoke Low German in his house before he went to school. And he was born in 1946, so this would have been around 1950.
Yeah, it's really fascinating, talking to people growing up around that time. That seems to be about the breaking point, right, where it changed, like Germany, the German language sort of started falling away.
Well, it wasn't uncommon for all these little towns in the Midwest to speak the language of whatever country they primarily came from. Most of those were settlements of, immigrants from Sweden and Germany and, wherever.
Yeah, a lot of Czechs and Germans in Nebraska, right?
Yeah, it's kind of crazy.
It is, yeah. I mean, because it's funny because I dealt with this in Wichita where I lived. Seeing firsthand. You get experience like, for example, a family that spoke Spanish deciding not to speak Spanish with their kids, and there ends the line. Like.
Right.
And you see it, and it's so interesting because you watch them speak Spanish to each other. Maybe a couple. And the kids don't understand. And then I experience here it a lot because we live in a very, very multicultural neighborhood. So people speaking Portuguese, Spanish, Italian, Turkish, Arabic, German and all these different languages, and some are passing that on to their kids and some aren't. And so that's always like, to me, that's really fascinating, that decision, you know, like what kind of, there's so many things that play into it, and obviously a lot of it is acceptance and wanting to fit in and things like that. But it always makes me sad a little bit to be like, oh, that a part of your culture and who you are is dying, sort of, you know, with that decision. Mm-hmm. But obviously there's a lot of merit to it as well. So it's just a really interesting topic to me.
Yeah, we just want to fit in. Everybody wants to fit in, right? Like, I think it has a lot to do with that. You want to fit in. You don't want to be judged as being different. Mm-hmm. And so that can take a lot of different forms. And I think for a lot of people, high school and maybe junior high, and just school in general probably, but is where you experience feeling that way. You want to fit in with your friends, so you want to dress like them. You want to listen to the same music. And so I think the language thing is, I'm guessing, is probably like a, you know, just a bigger view of that, like just wanting to fit in on kind of like a larger scale. But yeah, but I don't know any German, as you can attest to.
You probably know a dozen words or so.
I do not. Prost, you taught me how to say cheers.
There you go. There's one. Danke, bitte.
And I know sprechen. Say, yeah, that, whatever that word is.
Sprechen is to speak.
Something Deutsch, you know, sprechen, say Deutsch
sprechen
or something
Deutsch.
like that.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch? That's a nice way of asking if you speak German.
I learned that line from the movie The Great Outdoors with John Candy and Dan Aykroyd. So
yeah, that's already like 1, 2, 3,
so
like 5 words that you sort of know.
Sprechen, well, that's 4.
Sprechen Sie Deutsch is 3 words, and then you have, you know,
Yeah.
bitte and danke. I assume you know. I think you've said that before when you're here, like those 2 words.
Yeah. Yeah. Under 10 words. And I didn't learn. Normally, I'd learn like where's the bathroom, but I had you. I didn't need any of that. I had you to take me to the bathroom.
And you had your credit card.
Show
You had
me
your
the
credit
ropes.
card that you could always flash around. I got this.
I had my
I'll pay
credit
for
card. That
this
was
bathroom.
I'll get this one. Nope, you will. Never mind. They don't take cards here. It just doesn't even. Who doesn't take cards like anymore? I mean, what year is this? 1970? You know, like, come on, folks. I will say when I arrived in Munich, it was like time travel, because when they took us from the plane to the terminal, the very first like thing I saw when I walked in was like this murky looking break room where all the employees were smoking. And it was literally like watching a TV show that's like trying to look like it's from the 80s. I'm like, what year did I arrive in? This is crazy. Because I haven't seen like a break room where that you can smoke in for I don't know how many years. For years. Like since I was a kid. And so yeah, that was pretty wild. Yeah. And then the walls, when I got like to the top of the escalator, were very sterile. Like it was just a very sterile environment, and like it had no, there was just no like feeling whatsoever. You know, you didn't get like a vibe of anything other than just like sterile walls. And thankfully, once you get out of the airport, you know, it's beautiful. But yeah, the airport in Munich, man, that was a trip. So
yeah, next time you should just spend your whole time there, walking the hallways and going to break rooms and trying to figure out the bathroom system. Yeah, that could be its own vacation.
Yeah. Yeah. The gift shop's very nice. I remember hitting the gift shop on my way back. And I remember being able to buy a lot of nice treats for my family there. But yeah. And it felt different. The second time you go somewhere, it's always different. Yeah. Because now you kind of know what to expect. So you view it differently. The first time you see something, it's always like, oh, this is different, But the second time, then you're beyond the first things you notice. Now you're like getting to the second level of things.
Yeah, and you're like high-fiving the guards and stuff. Like, hey, what's going on, baby?
What's up? I don't speak German. What's up, man?
I seen you around.
Sie Deutsch? Prost.
Hey, you're working at the bakery. Yeah. I saw you last time. What's up?
Yep. So.
Yeah. It's just.
And they just say, stupid fat American. Go back home.
Don't be so harsh. No.
Is that what they?
No.
That's what you told me when I arrived. And when I arrived there, what? You said something. You said something. You said, you know how they know who's American? You're all fat. That's basically what you. That's what you told me. You're like, they know Americans because they're all fat.
I just had one time an Austrian guy was going with me to pick up some Meet Americans at the train station. He's like, "Oh, I know who we look for. The guys holding the McDonald's cups that are fat." And I was like, "Whoa!" And then I called them and I was like, "Hey, we're about to pick you up. Throw away your cups.
Get rid of your McDonald's cups and try to suck in your gut."
Hey, Johnny, looking good, man.
How's it going?
You working out?
Whoa. Yeah, I just bought some smaller pants. Yeah. Do I look fat in these?
No,
they're stretchy. They're yoga pants. I'm wearing yoga pants and a tank top. It's all black. I'm trying to.
That's
look
an
skinny.
old stereotype that we want to do away with.
Okay.
That's not true.
Very good.
You are you're a prime example of a fit non-McDonald eating.
I don't eat at McDonald's, but I'm not trim like you're trim. I mean, you weigh what, like 132 pounds?
Soaking wet.
Yeah, I weigh like an extra 100 pounds.
Yeah, but you got that beard weight,
That beard.
You wear glasses. I don't wear glasses, for example.
Yeah.
You probably have some some boots that one would need in Western Nebraska with steel toes. Adds like 3 pounds.
You gotta have boots.
Like 3 pounds. Steel toe boots.
And a belt buckle. I'm not even gonna tell you how much my buckle weighs. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I did lose a little weight over Lent.
That's what I'm saying, man. I mean, I can only see your face, but I assume.
Now, one of my friends told me I looked chubby yesterday. He's like, "Did you put up some weight?"
Really?
I'm like, "Dude, what are you talking about? Get out of my face. You can leave my office now." I kicked him out. I said, "I never want to see your face again. Your ugly face."
And you especially since
I didn't say any of that.
You did literally lose weight, though, right? I mean, you are telling the truth. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I just lost some weight. And then he's like, "You look chubbier."
When was the last time you saw? Maybe he saw you in high school. Maybe it was the last time he saw you.
No, he just saw me recently. I mean, that's hurtful. It hurts my feelings.
No, it's the beard. It's probably the beard. It does sometimes, I look skinnier if I shave.
Adds 10 pounds? Does the beard add 10 pounds?
No, it just adds fullness to your face. With me,
full face.
When I shave my beard, then also I feel even more thin.
Trimmier.
Almost thin.
Your face is my face sunken in? Do I have a sunken in face?
It's just lovely when anybody makes any kind of negative remark about one's appearance. It's just never a nice way to see or to greet someone, Even if they mean it in good. I told you, right, like a few weeks back at church, someone was like, "Oh, you look so tired." And it's like, it's not like necessarily
Right.
they mean, and I say that to people too sometimes, I know, without thinking. But then you're just thinking about like, oh,
Yeah. Wow, you look tired. The bags under your eyes are huge. My word. Did you get into a bar fight? Holy cow, I can't tell if that's a black eye or if those bags are just awful looking. You look terrible.
ah.
Wow, I can't actually look directly at you right now. I'm shielding my
Someone
face.
did make a remark about my hair. They're like, oh, you didn't mind, it was like 2 weeks ago, didn't mind kind of spritzing up. What do you say? You didn't take the time to spruce yourself up before you come?
You didn't spruce up?
And I was like, oh.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, as long as my wife is all good with it. She's like, no,
Still
it's
talking
fine,
to
it's
me.
fine.
She's still talking.
I didn't mean. And I was like, no offense.
Do you own an iron? Do you dry your clothes or just wrinkle them up into a wad?
Someone told me,
Yeah.
my wife makes fun of me because my clothes are always so crinkly. And somebody told me recently, like, oh, I like your shirt. And I was like, oh, yeah, it's actually really wrinkly. It was like a, white button-up shirt. And they're like, no, that's the style, man.
That's what
And
we're
that's
doing
what
these days.
that's another just time where I realized if you do something long enough, eventually you're going to be cutting edge.
You're going to be in. Yeah.
That's why
Yeah.
you should always just be you, right?
They call it doing you, right? Just do you.
Because eventually you're going to fit in anyways.
I guess.
It's a adapt.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a curve. Whatever that is.
I don't. What?
Isn't that it's like the thing, the curve, right? They're just like, whatever that's called. We can.
Circle of life? Is it the circle of life, maybe?
It's something that
Life, death, birth.
Rafiki said.
Yeah. Okay.
So what else did you want to talk about?
All right. What are we talking about today? Well, I thought we should acknowledge we've asked people to give us feedback about something we say. Our handful of people that listen to our podcast. We actually have quite a few people from the state of Ohio that listen to our podcast. So I'd like to just
are
acknowledge.
you sure those aren't bots? Because we've had that.
I don't know if they're robots or not. I think the robots are from Virginia. So I think the robots that listen to our podcast are from Virginia. I think the people from Ohio are fairly organic. So hello, people from Ohio. I did start a We Will Journey podcast Facebook page. So look for that. And if you want to interact with us on that, people from Ohio, we'd love to hear from you. And we have one person from Texas that listens to it. I think it's Jane. What do you think?
I think so too. I don't know. I never really thought about it.
And we have a little bit of
agree with you on that.
Well, I kind of enjoy looking at the map. I'm like, what is it about us that appeals to people in Ohio or California? Because we have a little bit of a California crowd,
look,
too.
18 listens in Stratton, Nebraska this week.
Yes, that is
Every
a
time-
hot spot. I tell you, Stratton, Nebraska,
Every time you drive to Kearney.
we get heavy traffic, man. Every time on the way to work, I just do it every day, just so we get one extra listen. Yeah. So, anyways, but no, your brother gave us some feedback about our Roe v. Wade podcast, and so I wanted to make sure I did address that because he wanted us to clarify what Christian nationalism is, because he didn't think every listener would know what that was. And then he also said that you and I did not have a lot of nuance to our conversation and that we were talking about the same demographic. And so, but I don't feel like we have to deal with that too much because I haven't looked up the word nuance yet, so I have no idea what that means. And I also didn't look up the word demographic. And so I don't know either of those
talked
terms,
about-
and so I don't
We
feel
talked
like
about
I can.
demographic and Republicans, I thought. So.
Yeah.
Oh, you don't.
So,
you don't
anyways,
get
but
it.
to address,
It fell on empty.
I don't. We talk about demographic and Republicans.
I was just trying to be stupid like you were, and Democrats, Republicans.
Oh, okay. So it was like instead of
Yeah, I was like, I know what that
you
is.
said
We talk about Democrats
Demographic.
and Republicans.
demographs. That's a good joke. I
You
like
do,
that.
because you didn't say
I like
anything,
that.
and then it was. I shouldn't have said anything. No, I made
Well, I
it
didn't
worse
get it.
because that's okay.
No, I'm glad we
That's why it's
explained the
good.
joke because it always gets better with an explanation.
Editing is the most powerful thing in.
I'm not going
Podcasting.
to edit that out. That's staying. That's staying.
You
right
can at
there.
least edit out that my brother
But-
was the one that gave you feedback. You just say it was a listener who values.
No, I'm gonna say your brother. I'm not gonna edit out that it was your brother. Obviously, I'm gonna talk about your brother. He's your brother, my close friend. We both love him and love to make fun of him.
I love to
but-
make fun with him.
With him, I'm not of him. That's what I meant. That's what I meant to say. If I was a better person.
If you're a
but-
Democrat.
Yeah. So what is a Christian nationalist? Seth, do you have any ideas? Because I'm really drawing a blank here.
It's so
I
funny.
like
I
to
feel
throw
like we
out
talk about it so
terminology.
much, but to me, it would be someone who is getting their political and Christian ideals mixed up and becoming like. And if we're talking about American nationalist Christian, you're talking about someone who's very patriotic, also Christian, has ideals of Christianity, also has very kind of country is super important, and somehow my country and my faith have become one over time, and I'm not really what's the word? I'm not really differentiating the two no longer. So then things that I'm promoting, it almost could be that you think you're promoting God, but really you're just promoting your political ideas, and you're so caught up in the mixture of these ideas that you no longer can tell the difference. Or maybe you do it purposely, but I think it's often like, oh yes, obviously in the Bible it says we should have closed borders, and then someone's like, where does it say that in the Bible? Oh, I don't know. That's what every
right.
Christian believes.
I think maybe an easier way to put it. I don't know.
But I thought you
maybe it's not
always
easier,
put it the
but
easy way. So I
different.
was trying to explain it too much.
I was maybe another way to think about it is somebody who reads our culture and our country into like their biblical understanding. Right? So they look at scripture and then they read into the scripture our culture and our country, which would include, our form of democracy and our style of government, and they look at biblical narrative and they like assimilate certain groups of being in line with that biblical narrative, and then other groups being out of line with that biblical narrative, and then they run with that, so they draw similarities and differences from the narrative, and then they kind of read that into our culture and then use that to create new prophecy almost.
Yes.
That was probably not an easier way to put it.
No,
I don't
I'm not
know,
very good. But you have more eloquent ways of explaining things. I have more of a simple way, but also just as confusing. So I think basically neither of us.
Were both explanations confusing enough to make it good?
I don't know. I knew what you were saying at the start, and then by the end, I was kind of still knowing what you're saying. And I know what I know what it means, and I know how you would usually. But I think it's just the mixing up your politics and your religion. Politics being your personal country's politics, not.
I think
politics
one of the things that I think one of the rabbit trails that people go down that can kind of hurt them in some of this stuff is the eschatology or the end time talk. Basically, when every culture does this and has done this historically since Jesus left Earth, and they think that the end is now, right? So this is the end. It's never been this bad before. Obviously, all this prophecy, all this biblical end time narrative is talking about our time right now. Jesus is coming back at any point in time, right? And when we do that, I feel like we really plug in our culture into the narrative, right? We plug our culture into this in this prophetic way, and so I think that lends itself to reading more into narrative from our own culture than what is actually warranted. If that makes any sense. I think that opens the door. It kind of opens it. It's like, oh, we're in the end times. We're in prophecy. The Bible's actually talking about us. And so it kind of opens that door wide open to just throw in a lot
isn't it?
of things.
Basically boiled down to believing in this case, in the case of America, that we would believe America is the new Israel. Basically, that's kind of God's chosen people, but not just all of America, a certain group of Americans who are pushing certain ideas, and they're the ones that are kind of the chosen people of God. And it's so whatever we're pushing obviously is God's will.
Yeah. Well, we have this idea that we were founded on Christian principles.
Yeah. Well, which is
right?
true, but so is Europe. Now, modern Europe.
What? Right. Well, you're still founded.
On Christian principles, that's what I mean.
In some sense, that is true, right?
You just have
to
go
to other
to
senses, it's not
North
true.
Korea to see, or China or something, to see a country that's not.
Well, Christianity used to be more prevalent in China for a time. That was more of a modern movement to really push out religion in general out of China in the last 100 years or whatever.
I guess I'm just mean modern. You still see in the United States and Europe the effects of Christian principles that we take for granted every single day. People here do, at least all the time, and then. You don't have to look too far away to see that's what it would be like if there was not that basis of basic respect, that love your neighbor, kind of the basic ideal that sort of everybody has.
Yeah, so on one hand, you in the United States, we do have this Christian cultural flavor that exists just kind of in our fabric, right? Like the Golden Rule, 10 Commandments. Those are basically things that are culturally, they're cultural norms, right? And you could be a staunch atheist in the United States, but much of your makeup and fabric, right, like who you are, would have all of this mix of Christian ideology, right? Woven into your fabric, because it's just part of who we are. But you have to turn a blind eye to all these other things too. So people that want to talk about, well, we were founded on Christian principles. Okay, yeah, to some extent, but we also had all this other stuff that wasn't. We burned witches too, right? So we used to burn people at the stake because they were witches, and so there was all kinds of superstition and all of this other stuff that was blended into this Christian, foundation. Of course, slavery. The list goes on and on and on of all the ways that we have not been Christian. So,
abortion.
As much as we have been Christian, we have also not been Christian in our ethic. So
I just find it interesting. Like the only reason, because people everywhere talk about how America is a melting pot, of cultures, and also Europe is in especially the cities and stuff, kind of like that. Especially Western Europe, and around here, it's very much like that. And really, the only reason that even exists is because there's somewhere underlying, like you're talking about, some kind of Christian principle to be open to that. Because the countries where that's not the case, there's still, like right now going on, people in sort of concentration camp sort of places. There's slavery happening in other countries. There's people getting murdered because they're from another religion or race. And yes, that does happen in the U.S. every once in a while, but it's not an entire group of people against an entire group of people, like war that used to happen, in the States. And maybe it will get back to that point.
I think an interesting little thing about Christian history. So some of the extra biblical texts in the early Christian movement talk about the fact that, if there's wars, plagues, famines, whatever it was, I think the one I'm thinking of pertained more to like a plague. But most people, at 2,000 years ago, 1,500 years ago, ran away from that stuff, right? So if there was some disease, they had no idea how to treat this thing. That people were running away from the disease. They were fearful. But some of this extra biblical text that exists talks about the fact that Christians, instead of running away from it, they ran to it to help, right? They would help care for the sick and the dying, and then many times they would get sick and die themselves. Okay, so that's early Christian movement. That's their worldview was, we want to be in the mix of the suffering, and we want to help, even if that means our own life, right? Well, then you look, and so I said just a little bit ago, we kind of turned a blind eye to all this stuff that took place when our country was formed, and slavery, and you just go on down the line, right? What did Christians do when the AIDS epidemic hit, right? Did we run to those people? Did Christians flock to AIDS patients and try to comfort and help them? No, we did not. We ran away. What about gay people that were being persecuted? Did we run to them and say, how can we help you? How can we love you? We want to support you through this. No, we made signs that said God hates fags,
you're
right?
picking out like
That's
1%,
what we did.
not even 1% of.
I know I am. I'm taking broad strokes, right? I'm taking broad strokes.
Help your point with that one. Yes, I agree. A lot of people. It was more just not doing anything.
But Christians,
it wasn't you can't.
Christians didn't really. I'm just saying. There wasn't like a big,
it was more the neutral.
There wasn't like a stance.
Neutrality. So whatever you say.
For everybody that said that made those kinds of signs, right? You didn't see this movement from Christians, from the church, to say, "Hey, no, that's not right. Don't be." We kind of kept silent, and we didn't really say anything, And we kind of piled on, but in like a more politically correct, probably kind of way. We didn't really.
There's a big
try to walk with those people, right? And my only point is that Christians, modern Christians, the church of today, has had a tendency to look at some of this stuff, some of this cultural stuff, right, that is tragic and sad, and there are people that are hurting and need somebody to walk with them. We've kind of avoided that space. And instead of coming alongside, we've just avoided them altogether. And I think that's why we have a lot of the cultural stuff going on, the dynamic between Christians and whatever other worldview you want to insert into that. That's why it's so divisive, and that I think it's the same with the Roe v. Wade discussion. That instead of coming alongside those communities, those people that were most susceptible to hardship and things that basically lead up to abortion, instead of coming alongside those people and really investing into them, we did other stuff. We did political stuff, and we tried to solve it in a different way, which is very different than what we see in the early church. And I always think about Jesus when he asked to see a coin, right? He's like, show me this coin. You know, who's on this coin? Well, that's Caesar. Well, give Caesar what's Caesar's, right? And that's kind of how I try to live as a Jesus follower. I'm like, just give Caesar what's Caesar's, and I'm going to give God what's God's. There's a separation. Jesus really made a pretty clear distinction, I think.
Yeah, I mean, but at the end of the day, you know, the reality is that the Christians that are living amongst, like you kind of brought up some of those examples in the past, the Christians running towards kind of the broken. People that are doing that, they're not the ones that are the loud groups, you know, they're not the ones that are getting the publicity. And so that's kind of how it's going to be, I think. I mean, even if it becomes less and less, hopefully less and less Christians who have that Christian nationalism mindset or have a kind of apathetic standing back watching approach, they're still probably going to be the ones that get pointed out in the media, or the ones that, you know, if you want to be critical, you're going to look for the ones, the speakers, you know, the big time preachers that have an affair, you know, they're the ones obviously that are going to get the headlines, and not the thousands of, you know, pastors who we know many of who are faithfully serving the Lord and shepherding others, you know. And that's just kind of, that's how it is. So, I mean, it is good to bring up that and kind of fight against those kind of things, but it also is kind of exhausting to want to, like, change the narrative of something where part of the reason some of these people are getting the publicity is because they want it, you know, and so it's kind of always going to be Christians who...
Well, so one of the interesting things, so, you know, there's a big... So let's take slavery, for example, right? Well, the people that were promoting slavery and had justified slavery also typically profess to be Christian, right? So they overwhelmingly were Christian, but the people that led the movement against slavery were also Christian. So that's kind of like the two sides of the coin in a lot of this stuff, is that, yes, Christians were participating in some awful thing, right? But on the flip side, the people many times that were leading the movement against that awful thing were also Christian. So I you know, that's an interesting little caveat to the whole thing. But I think the same is true now, right? Like, we have your sign makers, protesters, right, that just look to bash people, and they call themselves Christians, right? And then we also have Christians that are saying, no, that's not how we do things. That's not the way of Jesus. And so both are true. more often than not, I would say that you have, two groups of Christians many times with very different views on how we should proceed, whatever the situation or circumstance.
Mm-hmm.
So
That was it.
I mean, you have like Shane Claiborne, for instance. He's a Christian, right? He has a program where he helps take firearms and he makes them into gardening tools. And then you have, Christians that, you will take my gun over my dead hands, And I think, in that particular case, I think both have a point, actually. Yeah. Both groups actually have a good point.
Yeah.
There's an aspect to owning a firearm, which, actually does help us probably keep some of our freedom, because you don't just go marching into some small town in the Midwest, because everybody owns a gun, right? Everybody owns a gun, and they know how to use the gun. And if you go in there thinking that you can just have your way, well, no, that's not true. And so there's that aspect of it. And then there's just all the, needless violent crime that takes place with, illegal guns and stuff that is just stupidity. But, so both things are true, and both movements have a point. So there's situations like that too.
Yep. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Was that nuanced enough for you think? Was that... I don't know if that was...
I don't know if that we'll wait for the feedback. We'll wait for the feedback, but I actually really appreciate your brother's thoughts, though. Just on any given subject. Obviously, he and we spent, I think, about 5 years-ish having coffee about 5 days a week together. Sometimes for an hour, sometimes for 2 hours. And so he and we worked through life together over many cups of coffee. And so I value his feedback a lot.
He has a lot of good experience, wisdom, and knowledge. One of the kids,
smart man.
One of my kids
Your
is
brother
trying
is
to
a smart man. Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. But anyways, well, we're kind of at over our half-hour mark, so we probably should be done for today. I just saw Klemens Eisner on Facebook. He had a reel, a new reel on Facebook. And I have been using some of Klemens' music just as little filler stuff in our podcast, but I do want to give Klemens a plug because I love Klemens. And so check out Klemens Eisner. And of course, our intro music is Jane. So, yeah.
Yes. Klemens is putting out stuff.
Yeah.
Go check out Jane's stuff. Right on both accounts.
Yeah. I can't think of Jane's last name right now because I just read an article about Jane Goodall yesterday, and the only last name I can come up with is Jane Goodall.
Gillman, right?
So, anyways, I'll put a link to Jane's website, but I can't think of her last name right now. All right. Love you, brother.
Love you too, man.
All right. Bye.